Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchise. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. I'm your host, Lance Graulich. So today we got an amazing episode, and I always talk about how people get started in entrepreneurship. Is this some sort of lab accident gone wrong? Environmental or otherwise? Well, this guy that we're going to talk to is a founder and CEO of multiple successful franchise brands. And, I think entrepreneurship is a muscle. Some of us are born with a lot of it. Some of us are born with none of it, but it can be developed. That is the great news. It can be developed. This guy founded his first brand at 15 years old, which eventually became a franchise system that, last I checked, is still going strong today. So welcome to the show, my friend, founder and CEO of Koala Insulation and Wallaby Windows, Scott Marr.
Awesome. Thanks, Lance, for having me on today.
Thanks for being here, Scott. All right, we gotta go way back. All right, you're 15 years old. How did this happen? You might even want to go back to your parents, because I suspect that there's some influence there that pushed you in that direction.
Yeah. So I've been a business owner since I was super young. A family friend of ours had a motorcycle dealership, and that was when I think he was opening that when I was 12 or 13 years old, and I got to got to work with him at a young age, and I was always detailing cars. I was always around cars, and he said, "Why don't you come detail motorcycles at the Harley dealership?" And I said, "That sounds like awesome. It sounds great. If I can make some money doing it, let's do it." So I had that opportunity in the summers and on the weekends, and then that evolved, and I started to build a loyal following and a loyal customer base. And then that evolved into doing general pressure washing and detailing of vehicles, mobile. I was doing that mobily, and I just I learned of this niche of mobile fleet washing, and had a customer, which was a family friend at the time, that I detailed their personally owned vehicles. They had a fleet of produce trucks, and I ended up earning their business, and I became their fleet washing vendor for their company. Ended up picking up several additional customers. About that time, I thought I wanted to be in banking, so I got a job at a local bank. I was graduating high school about that time. Didn't want to be in college. Kind of knew I just did not want to go to college. Although my parents really wished that I had. At the time, they were pretty convincing, but not quite convincing enough. And so I got a job at this local bank, and it was a lot of fun. I started to see how money moved through businesses and how loans were approved and issued, and it was just a lot of fun. And I ended up investing at 18 years old. I invested in a community bank. And so that was a lot of fun. I ended up staying there for a couple of years, ultimately, running my business on the side, and just hit the point where I said, I'm never going to hit, my personal financial goals if I don't leave this job. And I had just bought a house at 18 and 5 months. My parents I came home one day, and I remember saying, "I got the mortgage." And they were like flabbergasted. You did what? I was like, "Yeah, I got approved, and I put the deposit on this house, and I'm closing in like 45 days." And they were just like, "Okay, great. This is exciting." And so, anywho, decided to leave the bank, and my last day was December 31st, 2009. People thought I was nuts. They were like, "You just bought a house a year ago. You have a relatively new business." It wasn't new to me. I'd been doing it since I was 15 years old. And they were like, "And you're going to leave a full-time job that's stable with a mortgage at I think at that point I was 19, at 19 years old. And I was like, yep, it's going to be great. I'm going to give it all I've got. And you know what? My back's, I'm in a corner, and failure's not really an option for me. So I'll just go forward. And so that kind of launched the brand of Fleet Clean USA, which is still around today and thriving. And franchisees of that business are still doing well. And I still keep in contact with several of them. And so it was I guess you call it the American success story.
Well, and with that, you then built Koala. So talk a little bit about that. And within this story on Koala, just, mention, where did franchising enter your life? How did you find out about it, as opposed to, going back to the bank, so to speak, and getting money and expanding this thing yourself in the first place?
Yeah, great question. So Fleet Clean was an all corporate company to begin with. Basically, it started out as myself and a friend, and we were the guys that would come around and actually do the work. So we were the chuck in a truck, so to speak. And then we started to hire additional people, and then we kind of parted ways, and then I started building out the team. It was an all corporate company, so then we scaled. By 2012, we were in 5 different states or so. We had a little over 100 employees at that time, and it was an all corporate business. We had bootstrapped it all, so we were just reinvesting very heavily in the business. We were using bank financing for assets and equipment, and then that's when we started having customers contact us. So we had national customers, right? So the Ryder truck rentals of the world, and the Penske truck rentals of the world, Cisco Food Service, so on and so forth. We had those customers start to contact us and say, hey, can you service us in Phoenix? Can you provide service to us in Mobile, Alabama, Miami, Florida, Dallas, Texas? And then it just kept expanding.
Yeah.
And, we kind of, the team and I, we looked at each other and we were like, we can't afford to grow much. Like, we were already growing at like 50 and 100% year over year growth. So it was pretty insane. And we looked at each other and we just said, we just can't grow any faster than what we're doing. It would be reckless. And so that's when we started to explore the idea of franchising. And we said, at first I was against it. At first I said, no, I don't want to lose control.
Yes.
And that was the naive me, right? That I didn't understand franchising. And so we did what was known as a refranchise in the industry. And we took our corporate flagship location, which was a very successful branch for us. And we ultimately ended up selling that to our first franchise partner. And we did a minority recap, so to speak, of the business. We paid off all the debt, and we put the business on very solid footing. And we pushed the accelerator and said, let's, we're gonna learn franchising. And so that's what we did. We took the next 12 months and really started to understand the franchise model, started to build out our support and technology systems. And, we were definitely putting the wheels on, while the car was going down the road. Even though we knew the underlying business really well, we didn't know franchising very well. And I think that story is fairly reminiscent to most franchisors in their first system, if they hadn't been around franchising, in a prior world. So it was a lot of fun. We learned so many lessons, and ultimately it was a very successful system. Franchise partners, were successful and still are very successful in that business today.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, new franchisors quickly learn that, number one, the franchise agreements definitely give the franchisor the ultimate control, as opposed to what everybody seems to think in the beginning is, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose control. And look, the best part about it, myself being in franchising almost my entire life, is it's always better to have people with skin in the game in the local communities. Because if they obviously buy into your dream, so to speak, or in your case, your success, It's even better. So tell us about Koala. How'd Koala get launched?
Yeah, so I was in the truck washing business, pressure washing business, for a while, and I was really ready to change gears. So I had been approached numerous times. Been approached numerous times because of the success of Fleet Clean and from different private equity firms and different buyout firms and whatnot. And so when was it? June of 2018 or so. I had gotten contacted by a gentleman, super nice fella from a private equity firm that we had met with. We kind of had bumped into each other a couple of years prior, and he literally had calendared it because there was a conflict where we weren't able to work together. He literally calendared it almost to the day and contacted me back and just said, "Hey, I remember meeting with you. I remember talking to you, and I'd love to work with you. I'd love to get a transaction done." So we ended up doing a transaction on Fleet Clean in November of 2018, and I remember saying, "Okay, I'm not done. I'm just changing gears." And I knew I wanted to be in home services, and so a family relative of mine had came to me. I'm probably over, just bypass this in my intro, but I'm really one of the only folks in my immediate family that's a business owner. The rest of my family has worked for Coca-Cola and other such companies and other corporations. And so this family relative came to me, and this was in late 2017, and he said, "I really want to start a business. I don't have the money to start a business. Would you be interested in being a business partner with me?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm open," because I knew I was going to be doing something with Fleet Clean at that point. I said, "Yeah, I'm open. Let's let's have a conversation and let's look at options." And so we started looking at different things and ultimately landed on insulation as the service category. It was a space that was very ripe for disruption. It was a sluggish category, in my opinion, prior to Koala coming along.
Not like sandwich shops and pizza.
Yeah, or painting companies.
Or painting.
So, not there's anything wrong with that, but
right.
But at any rate, so decided to start Koala. So that's what we did. We started it in Atlanta under a predecessor name, and it was our flagship location there. And worked on it. We didn't know anything about insulation prior to getting into the business. Didn't really know anything about construction, for that matter. And so we learned it through trial and error and things like that. And within just a few months, we were profitable, and we said, "This is pretty interesting." So then I had another family friend reach out and say, they heard about the deal with Fleet Clean, and they said, "Oh, congratulations. And I hear you're doing this insulation business, and I'm really interested in doing something." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so we started talking, and then we ended up opening a second insulation business in another city. So it was like the perfect scenario, because we got to test out the business in a completely different area, different city, different market, all that good stuff. And then we were successful there within just a few months. And we said, "Okay, we're on to something here. Like we're doing something." So then we did it one more time. We opened a third market in another city. And then that's when I realized the intent going into it was not to franchise the business. The intent was just to have a local insulation business in Atlanta. We were hoping to do several $1 million a year in insulation work. Plan was to just build it up, make good money off of it, and then eventually sell it for a multiple of its earnings. And then ultimately, we after the third location and it was successful, we said, that's pretty interesting. So then that's when we decided to franchise it. So we started laying the groundwork for that in 2019, and then started to build out a small corporate team. And then we started to really accelerate that. By the end of 2019, we had no franchisees yet. We were already up to 12 or 13 staff members and at headquarters, and then we officially launched the franchise development effort in January of 2020, and then we all know what happened in March of 2020, which was exciting, the pandemic. So right at the beginning of our efforts. So it's been a long journey, but it's been a lot of fun, and we've had great success, and we've got wonderful franchise partners and a wonderful team that we've built at headquarters. And so we're really, like I like to say, we're really just getting started with Koala.
I love it. So, you obviously had that proof of concept now that you're in 3 different cities. Too good not to grow. Let's set up a franchise system and let's already do what you know. One thing, can you describe Koala? You mentioned insulation, but all the different types of insulation that you do, and obviously the benefits. Some people don't know.
Sure. Yeah. So what, at first, so when I thought of insulation, I thought itchy attics, don't want anything to do with that. Right. That was in 2017. Yes. I was like, I don't know about insulation. And, I wasn't sure. I was like, is that really even a market? Because what I didn't want, because I was in banking right through 2007, 8, 9. And what I didn't want was a business that only catered to new construction. It's too cyclical for me. I needed something that was really squarely in the home services space, not in construction.
Right.
And insulation definitely straddles that line. There's a huge retrofit market for insulation that I was not aware of. And so I'm an efficiency guy. I like to say I'm an efficiency guy. I like efficiency in everything. Doesn't matter what it is. Efficiency in processes, efficiency in vehicles, like fuel efficiency, whatever it is. And so whenever I started to think about insulation, it really, at first I turned my nose up to it. But then I was like, I get this. I understand this. Insulation is not a fad. It's in every house. And if it's not in every house, it should be in every house. And so that's whenever the light bulb moment really happened for me. So we do all types of insulation. So we do traditional insulation, which is like blown in, and bats, which is the most common. Blown in is just what it's called. It's a fibrous material, either made from fiberglass or cellulose, ground up newspaper, and whatever phone books are left, and cardboard, and then basically that's blown into the attic and or walls, and then or it could be fiberglass, same thing. That's a traditional insulation type. In commercial settings and or in wall settings, even in residential applications, you can do a bat insulation. Basically, look, insulation. If you're in a cold weather market, it keeps the warm air in. Right. So it just slows the rate of transfer. So if not, right, you would have a situation, think of it as like you take a soda or anything that's cool out of your refrigerator and just leave it sitting on the counter, it's going to sweat because the temperature difference is so great. So insulation basically does the same thing. You could take that same soda or a glass of ice water and wrap it with a couple paper towels, and the furthest most paper towel may not get wet, right? So that's essentially what insulation does. Obviously, it does a lot more than that as well. So we also do spray foam insulation, which is a newer type of insulation. Although it's been around for a really long time, it's really the more high performance type insulation. And so spray foam is used in walls, it's used in attics, it's used in commercial applications, it's used in many different types of applications, in fact. And so we do all types of insulation: residential, commercial, retrofit, as well as new construction.
So right now, Scott, you've grown this. I mean, you have like 400 territories open. I mean, this thing just took off. You have people, you have multi-unit franchisees. These aren't, it seems like somebody goes to buy one, they come back for more, they're getting 2 and 3 and 3 or more. I mean, the average franchisee has how many territories now?
Yeah, so our average franchise partner has 3.3 territories last I counted, and yeah, a lot of those folks started with one or two territories, and then after being in operations for 3 or 6 months, came back and bought an additional territory or two. Some folks have came back and bought, half a dozen or more territories after being in operation for some time. So that's always the best validation that you can ask for, right?
Yes, for those listening, I talk frequently about validation, the opportunity in a great franchise process to talk to existing franchisees about their experience. And it doesn't get any better than coming back for more and grabbing more territory before somebody else does. So I applaud you for that. So why don't we just move on to Wallaby, and then maybe we can talk about, the franchise selection process, or actually Koala, let's talk about investment. Let's talk about the investment range for
Okay.
Koala before we move on to Wallaby.
Yeah. So the cash investment range that's in our item 7 with Koala is going to be around, just say for easy numbers, 150 to $200,000. And that's assuming that you're using some sort of financing for, for the heavy assets, the truck and the rigs, and that's for a single territory operation.
Mhm. Got it. And so, and that includes some working capital, the franchise fee, obviously refer to their item 7, which I'm sure is being updated right now. But
Yeah.
that's a very, very reasonable investment. Let's move on to Wallaby, okay? And then we'll kind of talk about marketing and training in general, because I know, you love mentoring, you love training, and several of these items might be there might be some similarities across the brands. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about Wallaby. How did
Sure.
Wallaby come about? And let's get to the what I call the obvious that's staring me in the face. How did you get two Australian themed names for these brands or animals
Uh,
specifically?
yeah, great question. So uh, I'll talk a little bit about Wallaby, and then we'll talk about the naming convention. So Wallaby, we desire to have several brands, and so we all want them to be around home services, and we want to be able to have the ability to to sell additional services to the same customer, right? Or install windows and or insulation in the same home. And we have that same desire for brands in the future. So we started really thinking about what else is out there in the franchise category. And naturally with insulation, because it's really still one of the best home energy efficiency upgrades that you could do for the money and return on investment and payback time. And so we get a lot of people that say, well, I'm interested in upgrading my insulation, I'm interested in air sealing and a solar attic fan and da 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 da. And I'm interested to know, do y'all do any other types of upgrades, like new HVAC systems or windows and doors and so on and so forth? And we got that request a fair bit. And so I started really thinking about what else exists out there. HVAC in the last 3 to 5 years, and I think HVAC's a wonderful segment. I mean, I think it's amazing. It's needs based. It's oftentimes it's emergency type services, so on and so forth. But that space has really gotten rolled up in the last 5 years. Private equity's gotten very heavily involved in buying up HVAC companies. And I just said, yeah, that's not really a segment that I want to get involved in right now.
Mhm.
The window and door space was one that was really interesting to me, and because it continued on with the theme of efficiency. It continued on with the theme of improving comfort, and insulation is out of sight, out of mind. We know that. But it's very much a needs-based business as well, because when your house is uncomfortable, when your HVAC system is running constantly, when your power bills are high, all of a sudden, it really becomes a need more so than a want. And windows really straddle the line because you see them every day. Windows and doors, you see them every day. So it's a need and a want, and that's a really fun spot to be in a business, because you can make it feel good, and because it is good. And so we just thought that it made a lot of sense to have our businesses be synergistic with one another, above and beyond just saying we are a home services franchise or holding company. What's a deeper thesis than that? And that was, and what we ultimately came to was, improving comfort, energy conservation, so on and so forth. And so, not saying that we wouldn't stray away from that in the future with other brands, but that's what we're sticking to, and we just feel like that is that's a really good spot to be in our day and age. People are thinking more about total cost of ownership, and they're thinking about ways to reduce their carbon footprint, make their house more comfortable, reduce energy bills, so on and so forth. And so Wallaby came about, and we referred to it for the longest time as the window business. And so then we started to really think about different names and whatnot. And so we put a really fun name on Koala, because insulation's out of sight, out of mind. So we wanted the brand to be colorful. We wanted it to be fun. We wanted it to be bright. And we wanted people to really say, what in the hell do you guys do? That's what we ultimately wanted. And it works really well. Oftentimes when we're in a neighborhood and we're insulating someone's home, we'll have the neighbor or someone from the neighborhood pop in and say, hey, what are you guys doing? Can you come look at our house and give us an estimate? And then we end up picking up another job as a referral. That happens very frequently. And so we just continued on with that theme with Wallaby Windows. It just rolls off the tongue. There's not, Wallabies don't have much to do with windows, but the name felt catchy. We were able to also use a mascot, although we use the mascot for Wallaby a lot more sparingly than we do with Koala, because we want that brand to feel elevated, to be able to compete with the very reputable and well-known brands in the space, such as the Pellas and the Andersons and so on and so forth. And so I feel like we've done a good job of making it sufficiently fun, but also very classy as well.
Love it. So when did the first one open? I know you started franchising Wallaby in 2022. When did the first location actually open?
Yeah, so we the idea of the window business came about in 21. We started working on licensing and whatnot in hiring a team, building a team in mid 21. We opened our first flagship location in Brevard County, Florida. I believe our official open date was December of 2021. And then we really just learned the business during 2022, because we knew nothing about the window and door business.
Right.
And then so that was our first location. And then we started offering franchises as of January 1 of 2023. And so we're very much in the early stages of Wallaby franchise development, and we have our first franchise partner, and we're really appreciative of them believing in and being an early adopter of what it is that we're doing, and that's the Beckhams, and they're in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So
awesome.
So we're real excited with that, and we've already signed. We've already brought on several other franchise partners, and many more that are very interested in the concept. So we're really excited about the prospects of growth here.
Congrats on all that success. I would imagine some Koala franchisees might end up being Wallaby window franchisees. Is that a good guess?
Yeah, very possibly. We've had several people reach out and want to have that conversation, and it's certainly an opportunity for growth. I'm a big fan of, rather than going wide, go deep
Yeah.
in a certain location. The interesting thing is our average franchise partner with Koala is still pretty young in their business.
Yeah.
And it comes with the territory of franchising, that you're going to work with first time business owners a lot of times. And so that takes time. It takes time to learn and get good at business ownership, and you're learning a brand new trade all at once. So you're learning leadership, you're learning business management, and all the things that come along with the administrative side of running a business well. And you're learning the underlying service. And so with that, we're very cautious, selective with franchise partners as it relates to crossover.
Perfect segue right there, Scott. I want to hear about your selection process. You've been so successful with Koala. You'll obviously be
Yeah.
successful with Wallaby. What is that secret? We know franchising is a two-way street. You have to like them, they have to like you. But who are you looking for and who are you not looking for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's one of the things that we really, just throughout the process with Koala, and we've done probably 35 or 36 confirmation days now with Koala. And I feel like we just get better and better at it over time. But what we really look for in people is, we want folks that are competitive, and that's a big part of, I think that's a huge part of being successful in business, is wanting to do more, wanting to do something that's like bigger than yourself. And
Yes.
so we don't want someone who is gonna want to stop at a certain point and say that's enough, right? We want people that want to just keep going, because if you think about it, as a business owner, franchised or not franchised business owner, you should really think about your business as infinite.
Yes.
And really go into that. And when you're in a space like a home service space, like windows or doors or insulation, the opportunity is really massive. And just when you think I've grown as much as I can grow, or I've grown as much as I can, there's still more opportunity out there to continue to grow. And so anyway, we look for folks that are competitive, and that's probably the single thing, the single biggest thing that we do. The other thing is we look for folks who can really follow a process. Look, we don't know everything, and our franchise partners have to they have to have detours daily in their business, and we understand that. So we're not necessarily looking for people who are just going to, be rule followers and not, know how to detour.
You need problem solvers.
Bingo. We need people who can solve problems. We need people who can take that detour and then get back on track, right? The person that, that sees a pebble in the road or an obstacle in the road, and then it just throws their whole day off. That's not a great business owner, because that happens very, very regularly, especially in the first 3 to 6 months, of being in business, until you really get in there, get confident and comfortable in what it is you're doing. So those are just a couple of the things that we look for. And, what I would say also, Lance, is that we really follow our intuition and our gut instincts, because, sometimes they might be a great person, and, they might have the money, and they might have an awesome history or background, and but we just don't get a great feeling from them, and sometimes we just have to pass. And so we try to yeah we try to be selective, but we try to be fair as well. So And it's definitely a two-way street. We've had a lot of folks come to confirmation day and say, hey, you guys are awesome. We think that you're great people. We think you have a great business model. It's just not for me. And that's great too. I'd rather know that prior to getting into an arrangement than after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think of your, call it top 10 franchisees, you have a young brand performing incredibly well, heard nothing but amazing things. Your top 10 franchisees, where did they come from? All different walks of life, different careers?
Absolutely. We don't have, well, I'm going to back out. I was going to say we don't have anyone with installation experience, but that's actually wrong. As of about 3 months ago, we do have a franchise partner that actually had experience in the installation world in a slightly prior life. But other than that one person, no one had a background in installation before joining forces with Koala. So our most successful folks, have backgrounds in all different walks of life. So vehicle dealership, management, project management, software, construction project management.
It's probably an engineer in there.
Engineer, sales executives. We even have a gentleman that's a franchise partner who was an ex Major League Baseball player.
Love it.
So all different walks of life for sure.
So Scott, describe the process. You mentioned confirmation day, which comes kind of further along, but a broker like myself or somebody finds you on Google, who knows, looking at franchise opportunities, and there's a first call, and how does it progress? Talk a little bit about your validation process and all that.
Yeah, so we have a really good process. We work with Franchise Fastlane, and so they're essentially they're a vendor, right? So they're an outsourced service. They work very closely with us, and they have a really wonderful process. And so basically, if someone's interested in Koala, they get registered for an introductory phone call. That phone call can last 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how many questions and the level of interest, of course. And then after that, they're going to go through and look at the franchise disclosure document, and that's the big 200 plus page legalese to get introduced, because that's the document that really governs the franchisor relationship. From there, we're going to go through a what's called a UE call, which is unit economics. So we're going to talk about the item 19, which is the financial performance representations section of the FDD. That's what basically, how much money can I make in this business? Phone call. And then, as that progresses, they do territory mapping. So make sure that they get the territories and the areas that they want. And then throughout that process, running in parallel, they're joining leadership phone calls. So they're hearing from the leadership team at Koala. We actually do joint phone calls with Koala and Wallaby leadership, because the brands run, they run as sister brother brands, so to speak. So they'll go through the leadership calls. They'll also join validation calls through that process. Normally they jump on 2 or 3 validation calls. Some people want to do maybe 4 validation calls. Some people stop at 1 or 2. And I
got enough. I'm in. I need to be in now, please.
That's it. And then once you get through that process, there is some information that we're going to ask for from the prospective franchise partner, like proof of funds and just eligibility to be able to buy a business and start a business. But then once we get to that point, and there's a desire to move forward, and you feel like you've gotten enough and you're ready, and this is the team that I want to partner with, really one of the last steps in the process as it relates to discovery is to come to a confirmation day. And basically, you're going to come down, spend about 36 hours with us, and just basically check the box. This is the team I want to work with. This is the marriage outside of my normal marriage that I want to be a part of.
My business marriage.
And that's it. And we want to do this. We want to get started. So it's a really good process. It's very structured. I'd say it probably takes most people 70 to 90 days once they're introduced to Koala to fully come through that process. That's kind of the average. We've had people come through that process in 40 days. And we've had folks that have taken longer than that as well, taken 6 months. We've had people that actually came through the process, said this was awesome, really interested, but something's changed in my life. I'm going to need to put this on hold. And then they came back 6 months later and say, you know what, I've thought about it, every week since then, and I really want to do this. Interestingly, just happened today. Actually, we had another franchise partner, our prospective franchise partner, who really went through the full process, was ready to come to a confirmation day, said, I need to put the brakes on, got to take care of some things. And now they're back re-engaged in the process.
And fortunately, their territory was still available. That probably won't happen forever.
That is correct.
So Scott, people ask me all the time, why do I need a franchise? Can't I do it on my own? Save myself the franchise fee and the ongoing royalties. And I tell people, you know what I tell them, Scott? Of course you can create it on your own. But imagine, Scott, what you did creating Koala, creating Wallaby, and all that work you put into it till now. Let's talk about all the wonderful things and the benefits that franchisees today have. Let's talk about Koala, for example. National deals. Do you have a huge deal with Lowe's, I think?
That's right. Yeah. So
talk about those benefits and purchasing relationships.
Sure. Yeah. So could a person go out and start an independent installation business? Of course they could. They're going to go through trial and error. And essentially, when you're paying a franchise fee, you're getting a lot of benefits. What I like to say is it's really the fast track to profitability. Like our goal is to help you, not make those stumbles. The reality is you're going to make some stumbles with or without a franchise. That's just part of it. You're learning a brand new trade, and you're probably, we're probably working with a first-time business owner. So, it goes back to that. But the benefits, there's a whole roster of benefits that you get, especially with, a brand like Koala that, has grown, continues to grow, and now has really a national footprint with national relationships and national buying power. We do have a relationship, with Lowe's, and we do have a relationship with several other, very large companies that most people would know. And so that's just kind of the icing on the cake. But really, it's the support, it's the website infrastructure, it's the access to, the ready-made marketing materials and the know-how, and again, the trial and error. Like our job is to say, our job is to serve up all the things that work at the very beginning and say, don't do these things, focus on these things. And put your money to work here, in marketing and so on and so forth. So we had a prospective franchise partner that came in to confirmation day just a week ago. And, she said, we asked ourselves, why do we need to buy a franchise? And we started writing out a pro and con list. And she said, quickly, we got to the point to where we were just like, okay, we get it. We see it, and she started pointing out things. She has a background in tech and website design and development. And she's like, just to design and develop a really robust website is like one territory. And that's just one item.
Crazy.
And So there's a ton of benefits to it. Obviously, But it takes the right person as well. It takes somebody that wants to be a part of a system. That person needs to be they have to understand that there are guardrails in place, and you got to keep it between the lines. We don't want folks that are going to stray too far one way or the other. And so and that's obviously that's not for everyone. So
love it. How about your national call center? What about that kind of a major advantage?
Yeah, so contact center is something that is somewhat new for us, but it's providing a lot of benefits for us. I talk about it a lot, right? You're learning a brand new business. You're probably a first-time business owner, and there's a lot of things to do. And sometimes the most important thing to do is not necessarily answering the phone right there. And one of my favorite sayings is answer the damn phone, because I attribute so much of my success, in business to just being generally available when someone needs me. I'm reading a book right now called Impact Players, and this is very relative to this conversation. It says, do the job that needs to be done when it needs to be done. You could do that same job a month too late or a month too early, and it's irrelevant. So the contact center is essentially that. It's doing what needs to be done at that moment, because that person, look, the most important thing at the moment might be to, ensure that, Susie Susie's home is getting insulated because she was on the schedule and she took off work to be there. And so I appreciate that you got to prioritize and get Susie's job done.
Yeah.
But what about tomorrow's schedule? What about next week's schedule? How is that getting filled? Right. And so, it's prioritization, but that's really where the contact center comes in. And that is, we can, essentially acting as a back office of sorts to our franchise partners, local operations.
Love it. So training and mentorship, big thing, very important to you and every great franchise brand. Talk a little bit about what you do at Wallaby and at Koala.
Yeah. So we probably one of the biggest things that we do is we don't charge for training throughout the life of the franchise agreement. So I don't understand why franchise systems charge for training. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because ultimately the franchisee's success is the franchisor's success. Why hold knowledge transfer hostage? That's the way I kind of view the world. So we've just made it, it's just our core. We don't charge for training, and we won't. Period. The end. So we do a week's long training for both brands. There is some prerequisite training as well. And then there's, on the back end of that, there's in the field training also that we do. We also have the Koala and Wallaby library, as well as the launch center for both of those brands. And that's where the franchise partner gets to start to learn the foundational, the building blocks of the underlying service leading up to the training, so that way they come to training and they already know a fair bit about the underlying services that they're going to get trained on. And then we put all that knowledge to use in the field, usually for 2 days. And sometimes we extend it to 3, just depending on, where and who and all that good stuff, on the back end. After the training, so that way, we go and apply everything that was learned in the field, doing real world, real life jobs with customers, and doing estimates and sales calls and things like that.
Awesome. And what do you do? I'm assuming you have leaders in your franchise community. Do you do any kind of franchise advisory council? How does the collaboration work within the organization when you have top performers out there? Because I'm hearing some numbers, and boy, there's obviously some leaders going on in your organizations.
Sure. Yeah. So we kind of take a slightly different approach to a franchise advisory council. What we what we do is we try to spearhead a lot of that from headquarters, understanding that our franchise partners are running a business themselves, and we want them to stay focused on their business. So we do a few things. We do monthly roundtables, where franchise partners can join. We host the calls, and then we will select a franchisee spotlight. And we rotate through things. We rotate through operational topics. We rotate through sales topics, best practices, on the administrative side, leadership, so on and so forth. We also do a weekly sales kickoff. So we kick off the week every week with every franchise partner and or their salespeople, to really get them jazzed. So we give them a new tip and new trick, every single week,
Love it.
to just give them that extra ump to push forward in the week. So, and we do several other things as well, so that way there's a community, and there's a good feel, because we can't get out to every single location, very often. That's just the reality. We try to get out as much as we can, and that's actually part of our plan this year. Is we're doing more regional meetings and get-togethers, which is really exciting. So we're actually finalizing that schedule now, and the first one will kick off here in the next month or so. But we want to try to get people connected, with each other, so that way they can learn from their peers. And sometimes people deal with certain things. They might have a competitor, or they might have a problem, employee, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And so they want to hear from others. Hey, how do you deal with this? How have you dealt with this in the past? How did you overcome this objection? How did you get that new builder signed up as a customer?
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So
love it.
It's a lot of fun.
Last subject, let's touch on marketing. So what's so special when you become a franchisee? How do you get the phones ringing? I know you know the answer. Share that.
Yeah.
Share your knowledge.
Yeah. So we've spent a lot of time and we've deployed a lot of resources to be a top contender, on Google. Of course, home service businesses rely on Google. And so there's a whole strategy around, how to rank better, how to rank higher, and basically how to get the phone to ring. And so we've built some proprietary software that assists with that in a large way. We also have a relatively large marketing team that supports our franchise partners in getting set up. So we set up all of our franchise partners' websites, and localize those. We assist them in all of their digital lead generation efforts, so that we can make the phone ring, and also not just make the phone ring with just any call. We want them to have good phone calls, valuable customers that are willing to pay a market rate price, so that they can have a good healthy margin. Digital is really, for home service businesses, digital marketing is really what it's about, and focusing on, being there when the customer is looking for that service. So we've got so many tools in our tool bag, as it relates to marketing and lead generation that we deploy.
Scott, this is a lot of great information that you shared today, and I really appreciate it. So what are your final thoughts, final words of wisdom for those maybe interested in Koala or Wallaby windows?
Yeah, or any franchise.
Any franchise for that matter.
Yeah, what I would say is, when you're looking at a business, and this is the way I view it for new services or ancillary businesses, because I have other businesses that I run outside of Koala and Wallaby. Given enough time, businesses do work. That's what I would say, right? So as long as it's not a fad, right? We've all seen those franchises kind of come in, blow up real big, and then go away. As long as it's not a fad, as long as it's a service that's been around, that's going to be around, that, you know, Amazon is not going to take over, given enough time, it'll probably work, if you give it the effort. So just make sure that, you know, whatever business it is you go into, you know, make sure you vet it well, make sure that you're properly capitalized, because it probably will take a little more time for it to ramp or be at the scale that you want it to be at than what you project for. And so, you know, to that end, always project a best case scenario, a middle ground scenario, and a worst case scenario, and make sure that you're comfortable with every one of those scenarios. Because if you're not, then you probably ought to scratch your head and think about that before jumping into, you know, any business or any franchise.
Awesome. Scott Marr, founder and CEO of Koala Installation and Wallaby Windows. Scott, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me on, Lance.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.